Thank you for joining us. We will get going right away because want to respect your time, and also this is recorded. So anyone who signed up the um, for the Zoom info session will receive the recording as well. So without further ado, some habits die hard or never die, including a former investment banking analyst, love of let me see, love of Zoom. Let me see one second. All right. Love of PowerPoint. So I'm going to walk through um, maybe 20 slides or so as kind of a high level overview. And then very happy to take any questions that anyone may have at any time, really. So, we'll obviously take some time for Q&A at the end. But if you have any contextual questions about any of the slides, feel free to just smash that raise hand button on Zoom, and we will monitor that for questions all along the way. So I am coming to you today from Scottsdale, Arizona. It's an inferno here. You could cook an egg on the sidewalk, and Andrew Carr is joining us from Weehawken, New Jersey. We'll get to the kind of full introductions later, but just get right into the meat of why we're here. We are here to talk about learning the craft of fundamental public equity investing, right? And in my experience as a fundamental investor, the investment process generally begins with a very simple stimulus. The stimulus is you're an analyst, you work at a firm. The question is, take a look at this stock and let me know what you think, right? Raise your hand if that's happened to you day one on the job or week one on the job. It certainly happened to me, right? This happened to me when I was at Maverick as a junior analyst in 2008. And to continue that, I did this to my junior analysts when I was a PM. We can kind of talk about why that happens. But what we really have done in the Analyst Academy is we've tried to distill the frameworks that can guide an analyst through that process, either a day one junior analyst, or many of the analysts who come to Analyst Academy have been in the seat for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, sometimes more years, who are looking for a refresher or perhaps just different perspectives on the public equity investing process. And so really what we've tried to do here is we've tried to distill down my kind of 13 years on the buy side from places like Maverick and D.E. Shaw and Citadel to Sigma and Schoenfeld, with the goal of the program not being stylistic, but really working to install the basic toolkits of the fundamental analyst. My buy-side learning journey started in August 2008 at Maverick. I'd read about Maverick in the Hedge Hunters book by Catherine Burton. I said, well, that sounds like a cool place to work. It was a cool place to work. I joined the firm with an incredible amount of enthusiasm, but very little preparedness. And in the grand scheme of training, Maverick had a pretty good training program. We had a full kind of week-long training program. So I felt like I had some of the frameworks and toolkits to do the job. But even that, for someone as unprepared as me, wasn't enough, right? What you'll see in the Analyst Academy is many of these same modules and frameworks that were part of my first firm's journey, we've worked to replicate in this program. And so ultimately, my journey on the buy side ended in 2021. I became an adjunct professor at ASU and realized that I liked the craft of teaching rather than the craft of doing. And my inspiration for that really came from John Griffin in 2010, who was teaching a very similar program. He's John Griffin. I'm not, we're not. But really was a light bulb moment for me that the process of being a fundamental equity investor could be teachable, right? So that's what really we've endeavored to do. And so I worked at 5 top hedge funds, retired at 36. I'm happy with my career, but I'm not in anyone's Hall of Fame as an investor. A solid, if not spectacular career, many highs and many lows. That's bad news in the sense that you're not talking to Warren Buffett or Bill Ackman, but it's good news in the sense that you're not likely to be Warren Buffett or Bill Ackman either. You're more likely to have a career like mine, much more accessible, ups and downs, some wins, some losses. I'm nothing special. I'm a mere mortal, as most of us are, and so our job is to try and bring the lessons and the frameworks that helped along the lessons I've learned the hard way. Um, the lessons I've learned in hiring, training, and managing 13 analysts and managing portfolios. And so I was really grateful for the industry. The industry took me on some great adventures, all over. I didn't have a passport before I started on Wall Street. Took me all over the world, worked with some titans of the investing business, Lee Ainsley, Julius Gaudio, Rich Schimmel, worked at Ken Griffin's fund, although had no direct interaction with him. Incredibly stimulating intellectually and financially, can be incredibly remunerative industry. We try and frame that in a balanced way, though, and say the quiet part out loud, that this can be an incredibly stressful industry. I dealt with, at times, debilitating stress and anxiety. The markets, if you let them, can put you into constant fight or flight mode. I almost deleted this picture. I'm glad I didn't, because this is the before. I got really fat. I had excessive drinking, borderline alcoholism, some health issues. I was stressed and unhappy. It was a little bit of a classic case of burnout. And some of that was just my lack of fluency with this job, like why it was so hard for me. So part of my mission, part of our mission, is to help the 23-year-old version of myself, that kid that was so passionate, right? On the right here, wearing an undershirt with bad haircut, a little bit of acne, to help that 23-year-old version of myself. And so that's really what we've done here. I need a skill set, a mission, and a business. Our goal is to deliver a training program that prepares analysts for the rigors of the buy side seat. You're not going to come out of this program knowing how to day trade your way into wealth or learning to buy zero date options and make a ton of money. That's programs like that are a sham. Learning to be a moneymaker in the markets, to me, you can get there by luck or by skill, and skill is a multi-year, if not multi-decade plus journey of mastery. We're just driver's education for that journey, helping you identify the basic tools to prepare the analyst for the rigors of the buy side seat, and or to offer a hedge fund style rigorous framework for equity research, right? And so we do that at Fundamental Edge Academy, self-paced core curriculum, 30 hours, 1,500 slides of self-paced curriculum, consumed on your own time with 12 months of access to templates, case studies, underlying Excel docs, with a live overlay. The first and last sessions are live with recordings available in case you missed them. 4 live office hour sessions where you can ask your questions to Andrew and I. Select one-on-one coaching available, with some paid coaching with Andrew if there's overage or more demand for that. Supplemented by a speaker series of really expert speakers. Some people like Howard Marks and Ricky Sandler, but also some very topical speakers. In 2 weeks, we have one of my former colleagues at Maverick, now runs a hedge fund and was a PM at Citadel and SAC, speaking. These are people who won't speak broadly on a podcast, but they're happy to speak broadly in our closed ecosystem to give their lessons from their journey as well. And so those expert speakers complement the core curriculum. And then we're really working to build a community around the content, right? We just scheduled our New York mixer in the fall, or tentatively scheduled. Preferred access to our talent hub services, where we aim to make connections to employers. Alumni exclusive in-person events like our spring training in Arizona. The double entendre is intentional, as we went to a spring training game and spring trained on fundamental equity research mixers, and alumni exclusive virtual events like our Fundamental Edge Forum, which we can talk about. So the instructors are myself. I gave you my background. I also have the esteemed Andrew Carr here. Andrew, would you please introduce yourself to the group?
Good evening, everybody. Tough intro to follow from Brett there, but I'm Andrew Carr. I spent about 7 years on the buy side, of which the first 3.5 years were at Balyasny Asset Management, where I got kind of a glimpse of what a difference a strong training program can make for new analysts. I then worked at Striker View Capital, a single manager backed by Blackstone, and up until last year, I was working at Exodus Point, where up until that point, I was running a small sleeve as part of a larger financials team. In addition to this, I had also accumulated several hundred hours of experience training aspiring and current analysts. And it was with that accumulated amount of experience that I reached out to Brett and said, hey, would you like a hand with Fundamental Edge? And the rest is history. And that's why I'm before you this evening as well. Looking forward to getting to know you all better.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, so I'm still kind of a tiger cub at heart. I swallowed the pill on the Maverick Tiger strategy and worked to adopt that. Not incredibly successful in the multi-manager world. I think Andrew was born and raised as a pod monkey, which we say lovingly. And so I think it's fun when we take in office hours, the same question from different angles. And so that's kind of what the market says we all are bemoaning or enjoying are more short term than ever, more pod monkey influence than ever. And so even for the long-term investment philosophy, which we espouse via more kind of the Maverick Tiger approach, where holding periods can be multiple years on the long side, we try and really approach these questions from all dimensions. You also will see through the program Joe and Jess, who lead up our operations team, and so these you will see their names. Just to give a quick overview of the curriculum, really have kind of 15 core modules. We can send the deck out. I won't read these off because you have the syllabus. But we start with, setting the table, foundations of fundamental investing, and with wrapping up. And we'll talk about intro to thesis development, why stocks move up and down. Really, the goal is to provide and convey all the mechanics necessary in the program. And what you'll see in each module, you will see a core curriculum piece, right? So, like, for example, in industry coverage, our core kind of 2 to 3 hour recorded module. There will be then supplementary videos from various experts like Alix Pasquet and Tom Elnick, one of the co-founders of Thesis. And then we'll provide some sort of supplementary reading, supplementary a model, like the pizza model, which is a model on the pizza industry, to give an example of what we learned in industry coverage, right? And so there's a combination of content, a takeaway, a reading, and generally in most modules, you're not hearing just from me, but you're hearing from someone else as well. Those supplementary materials will be a model, template library, models that I've taken along my journey and was fortunate to have received IP to share. Those can be models from 10, 15 years ago while I was in the seat, and also new purpose-built models, Excel slide backups, and live aged case studies like on Vopak, Cigna, NVIDIA, Winnebago, and then supplemental readings. So the materials are really 30 hours of self-paced core curriculum, and then supplementary videos that are from Andrew and myself on Rise of the Pods, various case studies, ASU pitch competition pitches that are recorded, and then guest speaker sessions. And so, one of the most enjoyable pieces of feedback we get is, wow, this is really dense. There's a lot of stuff here, which we would prefer to have density rather than thinness. So in total, about 95 hours of stuff, 30 hours of curriculum, and 65 hours of other. In general, people take between 5 and 15 weeks. The structured program with case studies or with office hours is 6 weeks, right? And so we'll have office hours every other week with a live wrap September 17th. If you can't make office hours, they're all recorded and uploaded. You can submit questions before, and we'll take Europe and Asian hours by demand. If there is a quorum of students who can't make the stated office hours, we will add extra office hours to accommodate those students. So just to highlight a few of our supplementary guest speakers, the full list is here. We have some of the really kind of foremost experts in the world talking about their craft. People like Aswath Damodaran talking about valuation, Francois Trehan talking about macro, Howard Marks talking about investing through cycles, Ricky Sandler, Michael Gatto, and then many people you haven't heard of, but who are in the trenches. People like Derek Vincent, who's now running a consumer portfolio at Verition. People like Eduardo Cardoso, who has run portfolios at Citadel and SAC. And so you get to see a differing viewpoints from really kind of leading investors. Hear from people like Ted Seides, hear from people like Rishi Dixit, who is currently a partner at Valiant Capital, at Tiger Cub. And so really a great mix of individuals. People like Rich Falk Wallace, who was at Viking and Citadel, is now building a risk model platform. And then lastly, we kind of bring that together in a community of NYC mixers. These are pictures from our spring training event, which is alumni exclusive that we will hold again end of February 25. We're starting a steady dose of quarterly mixers in NYC, Talent Hub access, working on kind of building connectivity around the community with things like a Fundamental Edge Forum, which is our quarterly Zoom get together where we talk about markets and concepts, and then continuous learning. So it's not just a one and done thing. Once you're in the alumni base, we have things like the spring training conference where we're doing new presentations to kind of keep continuing to build up the tools. Logistics wise, the program is delivered via a learning management system with live office hours. And so you go through it at your pace. If you don't get through it in 6 weeks, we don't cut you off. You have 12 months access, and you have access to live office hours to ask questions. And so really the goal at the end, circling back, is when you're in a seat and your PM says, take a look at this doc and let me know what you think. That is a very terrifying, as benign as it seems, is very terrifying. Because one, I want to do a good job. Two, I only have one opportunity to make a good first impression. If I really bungle this, that could really impact the trajectory of my career. But that seems overkill, but it's not. Trust me, it's not. And so we want to tool you up when you get this request to adequately and exhaustively explore this question, right? And we'll do that via our 9-step thesis development process, where we talk about how to develop expertise to have authority on what you're talking about, all the way down to presentation feedback and monitoring. So walking through the idea generation, model construction, structured due diligence, expectations and valuation work, identifying the core debate and tailoring diligence around that debate, generating that critical differential insight, and then putting that into a thesis, which is not a book report. It's not a little bit about a lot. It's not a sell-side initiation. It's a thesis, a pointed, structured thesis for which we'll give you examples and guidance on creating. And so where we can, we'll try and get very prescriptive. And not to say this is exactly how to do it, but we'd like to give you lots of options, right, to see and expose you to, hey, if I was going to spend 65 hours on a new name, this might be roughly how I might allocate those 65 hours, right? So rather than not knowing, damn, how do I spend my time, right? We can give you some examples and some frameworks to think about, to then develop your own process, right? And so that's really our goal here, is to help you develop your process, not to give you picks, not to tell you what to do with NVIDIA, but to give you the process and tools so that you can go then analyze NVIDIA, estimate your own, bull-based bear, risk reward, develop your own thesis on the name, right? And so that's really what the goal of Analyst Academy is. I hope that's a somewhat succinct overview. With that, I will stop talking and happy to open it up to any questions that anyone has on the group. You can either, if you're shy, feel free to put those in the chat. Other than that, happy to take any questions from that anyone on the Zoom might have. And to warm it up, Andrew, you've talked to a lot of students who are considering the Analyst Academy. Are there any FAQs, also known as frequently asked questions, that come up in those conversations that we might want to address here?
Sure. I think one of them is people say, well, I'm trying to go for this type of fund or I'm trying to go for that type of fund. And I, I'm not sure if everything is going to be exactly what I'm looking for. And what I tell people in response is you get the benefit of both Brett and my experience, Brett from his time at a single manager, my time at a multi-manager, where we can speak credibly to those things. And increasingly, as we speak with more people, really what we're doing is when you sign at your new fund, your PM in their heart of hearts would love to spend 60 hours with you to mold you in the image of how they would like to invest. The problem when you're a PM, and Brett can attest to this having run a team of 9 people, is there will never be 60 hours per new hire to get to teach everything. What we do here at Fundamental Edge is of that 60 hours, we've got 30 hours that will get you enough up the hill that your PM can then scoop you up and focus on more higher level investing questions. And we take care of the basics. So it all goes back to that driver's ed where we teach the non-negotiables. We're not going to tell you how fast to drive versus the posted speed limit. We're telling you where the gas is, the brakes, the turn signals, how other drivers on the road might approach driving. And it is with that context that you'll be better prepared for the rigors of the seat where you will sign. So I would say that's a frequently asked question that comes up.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And we really, for a period of time, I was tweeting a lot about pods, and everyone's like, is this just a pod program? And I would say, we believe it's good preparation for that sort of investing. We also do a lot around, for example, doing a deep dive on an industry or doing an incredibly deep dive on a company. And we'll walk through step by step how to really rip apart a business and understand the fundamentals of a business. And so what we've intentionally tried to do is create that in a non-denominational way. So it's the basic core principles that apply across investing styles. And, I think we've been grateful in the sense that a lot of our curriculum has resonated. On the enterprise side, we now work with many long-only clients. We're working with obviously multi-manager pod clients and Tiger Cub clients as well. And so I think that's the general focus, is not stylistic, but more toolkit oriented, installing a toolkit.
It's actually a great point that you make because in doing Fundamental Edge, you'll be in good company. About 2/3 of the people who come through the program are already on the buy side, maybe earlier in their career, and they just never really got a grounding in certain aspects of the process. And so they've come to Fundamental Edge to complement and round out those skills. So the majority of people who come through Fundamental Edge, and we've had about 700 come through, are already in investing seats. And it's worth noting that the feedback has been pretty good. And some of the best feedback that we get is people who have been promoted, and they write back to us to email us and say, it wouldn't have been possible without the education that I got at Fundamental Edge. So we always love to hear those success stories. We welcome them all the time. But that's kind of an overview of what you can expect in the program.
Right. I had a question, DM, thanks for the webinar. If we do not enroll in the August intake, when will the next opportunity be if you already have a plan for that? We've kind of found a cadence of around every other month. So August, we probably do October, late September, early October would be the next enrollment. Also, we try to be flexible. We understand that you're all busy and have demands. Again, 95% of enrollees have some sort of job. And so people tend to be going through the program nights and weekends. So if there are periods of time where it's, hey, I have 2 open weeks in September, we will then turn on the self-paced curriculum and then invite you to the next office hours sections for your questions. So that is that's generally how it works. But generally there'll be an opportunity every 2 to 3 months for another cohort to start. We do that because of the episodic nature, but we also try to keep the cohorts somewhat manageable, right? Rather than do one or two big cohorts per year, we prefer to do, 5 or 6 smaller cohorts so we can ensure that we have the ability to do the one-on-one and group intensive Q&A for the programs.
Hey Brett, this is super helpful. Question is like how big are the average cohorts, and then what's the structure for office hours given the self-paced sort of nature of the program?
Yeah. So the cohorts have varied. They tend to be anywhere from 50 to 80 in terms of the group size. What I would tell you is the peculiarity of office hours is out of a 60 to 70 person cohort, we generally have about 15, maybe 10 to 20 show up for office hours. So we really never have faced an opportunity where there's not adequate, for those interested, adequate time um, to get the questions answered. Those are, I put the dates in the deck. Those dates will be basically a Tuesday after the market closed every other week. And we'll do a Zoom just like this. You come, ask your question. Really, any question goes. It doesn't have to be specific to the curriculum that week. They can be situation specific, because if you have a situation, if it's hyper specific, we might take that in a one-on-one call. Certainly there's some sensitivity, but generally if you have a question on something, the rest of the group might have a question as well. And we kind of make a pledge to the cohorts that we won't close a cohort if you have any questions outstanding. So we will often near the end of the cohort then do some one-on-ones if there are specific needs for more questions, or often sometimes we get a long question list rather than do that in a group session. If it's not relevant to everyone, we might just get on a Zoom and do that, kind of handle that one-on-one. And then often what we do, hopefully you see the mentality we have is try to be flexible and work with people, because we've been in the seat. We know that demands can come and go. And so we'll generally honor requests if you get busy during a cohort to join group office hours for the next cohort as well. Too. So hopefully we're finding the balance of having adequate time to get any questions answered.
Yeah, that's helpful.
There's one other thing, which is suppose you have a schedule conflict, but it's kind of like an urgent question, but you also, because of your schedule, you can't hop on the Zoom. What we've done from time to time is people will email us the question, and then we'll go to the mailbag during office hours, answer those questions, and then you'll be able to view the answer to your question in the recording that gets posted.
Got that. And just in prior cohorts, the best experience sort of been by kind of taking each sort of module incrementally over the 6 weeks and just pacing, I don't know, what is it, 3 hours a day or something like that to kind of get through it? Or have people, I don't know, just what's the experience been like as it relates to people being able to sort of work through the models while also juggling other demands, as we're calling it?
Everyone kind of does it differently. I mean, Andrew, before he joined, went through, I think, in a weekend and just kind of like, put it on double speed and just kind of did his like crazy, like, type A former rower, like max out sort of
just pod habit
mentality. So you can reduce the time by listening on double speed. I personally am not smart enough to digest things at faster speeds. I think it's I mean, the way I would do it is I would try and get through a module at a time, so I'm not like breaking it up. So I'd like, if I were doing it, I'd be like, okay, this Sunday afternoon I'm going to get through the short selling module and take notes and put questions. Um and then we found too that a lot of the curriculum is very dense. So what we find that people do a lot is they will then go back. You'll be able to download all the decks, so you can keep the decks. Then we find people also then go back if they're like doing a lot on short selling. They can go back to the short selling curriculum and kind of revisit curriculum later. So yeah, I mean, I think over 6 weeks, if I were doing it, I would try and chop it up. I'd try and find like 3 or 4 days a week where I'd put 2 or 3 hour chunks to get through everything. Same way it's like if any of you have studied for the CFA, like it's to get the most out of it, it's a decent amount of work. But for the right student who's on the path, our view is the more you put into it, the higher the ROI will be if you can really kind of adopt, and not saying we know everything, right? It's like we don't know everything. Our goal is to expose you to things, get your mind working, so you can be like, oh, I like this. Let me think about this way. Let me add my own twist to it, right? So you get to the point where you have the ability to analyze really any situation you see in the public markets.
Thank you. That's it for me.
All right. What are the FAQ? Maybe one more FAQ, and then we'll stall a little bit to see if there's any last questions from the group. What else do we get?
Sometimes we get questions about, well, we've benefited a lot from word of mouth. Occasionally people will ask us for testimonials, or if there's a way to set up a conversation maybe with somebody who has gone through the program. We're fortunate in that the number of alums continues to grow, but from time to time we can provide testimonials from other people who might be in a similar seat to the one that you're in or the one that you're considering. Just so you can kind of get someone's perspective who has been through the academy.
Alex.
Hey guys, thanks Bruce, thanks Andrew. I just want to ask, like, during the classes, I mean, or is there anything we as a community can do together? I mean, it's just we study all the video courses alone, or is there any platform for the cohort to discuss something together? Or how did you guys design some like dynamics discussion sections among, or not only between the student and the mentor, but also among students?
It's a good question, Alex. We've been kind of considering facilitating study groups by geography. And so that's something we're happy to help coordinate. That's certainly, Andrew's in New York, I'm in Arizona. So geography wise, those can make sense. We have historically worked to be respectful of anonymity. So a number of students are, don't want their name disclosed, and two, sensitive to material non-public information diffusion. For example, if one student was discussing, Chipotle is going to miss the quarter because his uncle works in the finance department, every student that was exposed to that information would then have to report that back to the compliance and restrict trading. And so we typically have not done like a Discord because of concern around compliance and MMPI. But as it relates to study, so we haven't done a Slack or a Discord, but as it relates to like a study group, we'd be happy to do that. And we're working on doing more kind of alumni connectivity with the kind of existing 700 alumni, many of who are now at funds and might be looking to employ analysts in the future.
Okay, thank you, Brett. Yeah, just quick follow up. I mean, how many cohort do we have right now, and is there any chance to connect to previous students in that sort?
Yeah, absolutely. Joe at Fundament Edge or Jess at Fundament Edge, if you'd like to chat with any like past graduates to get their perspective on the program, we're happy to facilitate that. Also, we are doing Fundamental Edge forums at the end of not every cohort, but nearly every cohort now, which we will then introduce the new alumni to the existing alumni. So that's basically a group Zoom where it's like, hey, welcome the August grads, and we're likely to then have an opt-in where it's like, if you want to have your information shared with the existing grads, we're trying to create that connectivity there. And I'd say in this dimension, we're kind of open to suggestions and feedback. We're still kind of figuring this out, trying to find ways. It wasn't as relevant when we had 50 alumni, but now that we have 700 alumni, we're working on ways to continue to kind of build that community and connectivity. We've started with the Fundamental Edge Forum, which is a live quarterly event, Zoom, the Arizona Spring Training Conference, which is a live event in Arizona, and then quarterly mixers for alumni. We're starting now in New York.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Then at a DM might be a stretch, but do you have some stats on where recent alumni of the program are working? Less important on names, but kind of pods versus other long, short versus long only broad categories. And is there anything you recommend we should do before beginning the program to be able to make the most of it? In terms of where alumni work, again, Andrew mentioned about 2/3 of people are already on the buy side. So this is, well, certainly many students engage with the program to get a job. 2/3 are already in the seat and are looking to either make a move, or often it's just to get better at their existing job. And so that's really kind of the, we speak less to making a move, or we do a little bit of that, and we speak more to the skill set of doing the job. In terms of distribution, it's really a pretty balanced distribution, right? It would be probably less pod than you would think, about 15 to 20% pod, 15 to 20% long only, 15 to 20% single manager. And then it'd be a pretty big chunk, like 30 to 40% of, say, like other. That would include private wealth management, RIA, and family office would be a big chunk of that. And then we will usually have a selection of kind of out of their mind undergrads who want a head start, or MBAs who are looking to continue or make a career move. And then every once in a while we get a random person, someone from we get plenty of like equity, sell side equity research people who want the buy side perspective. Who else do we get, Andrew?
Well, we've gotten people who, I think that was a balanced overview of the buy sides. Some other types of learners that we have might do that. Maybe they work at an alt data company and they're trying to understand, like, why is it that my clients care so much about this metric out of the 20 that I send them? So we get a lot of that, people from alt data. We get people, we've actually had people reach out from startups that are doing interesting things to make the jobs of hedge fund analysts easier. And they're trying to understand, they're effectively just trying to, put a camera on the shoulder of a fundamental equity analyst. And this program allows them to do just that. Another interesting thing that we've learned is, we don't have specific statistics on this because we're not privy to this exact information, but we have a lot of enrollees who come through the program who, it seems, may be actually reimbursed by their employer for continuing learning. And the reason I mention that is sometimes employers are absolutely on board with getting more horsepower out of their analysts. And so they would be glad to partially or fully offset attending an academy. So all that is to say, there's a robust representation of people from funds that would be some of the first names to come to mind if you thought of a fund of one type or another type. And then we also have a long tail of people from all sorts of other seats as well.
And then there's another question. Is there anything you would recommend we should do before beginning the program to be able to make the most of it? I wouldn't necessarily say, if you're ready, send us an email and we will often just turn the curriculum on rather than saying, hey, go read these 8 to 12 hours. To the point that there's 95 hours of total content. My bias might just be ping us and we'll turn it on and get started whenever you're started. Probably if there's any textbook to the program, a book that I reference quite a bit because I find it very empirical, and it's on the bookshelf of many fundamental investors, is the valuation book from McKinsey. And so when it comes to value creation, understanding how to really kind of deeply understand the fundamental engine, free cash flow engine and moat of a business, that's kind of a very empirically solid book that we will reference in the curriculum. But we pull snippets from kind of all over the place.
And now that you mention it, there is another book that could be additive, especially if you're earlier in your buy-side career, as considering that Fundamental Edge Academy is kind of what you would want day one as an analyst in the seat. We also work with Paul Johnson, who was the co-author of the book, Pitch the Perfect Investment. I have it on a different bookshelf than the one behind me, so I can't go grab it. But I actually, even prior to joining Fundamental Edge, or prior to working with Paul as part of Fundamental Edge, had all of my mentees read this book, because it does a great job of laying out how a new analyst can better work together with their PM. And you'll see how it dovetails with the Fundamental Edge curriculum, but there are a lot of aspects to how to pitch a stock to your PM to get them in the book that you can learn the easy way or the hard way. And so the combination of Pitch the Perfect Investment and Fundamental Edge Academy will give you kind of the meat and potatoes of what needs to go into a stock pitch, and also kind of the hot sauce of how to make your pitch especially pop for your audience. And since the job is all about getting names in the book and then harvesting the benefit of the performance of those, Pitch the Perfect Investment would be what I would recommend. And also it's an easy beach read. Somebody said it's good to see a CBS alum will recommend Paul's book. I don't even think I interacted with Paul once while I was at CBS. And, here we are this time later. He's actually taught maybe 7% of living Columbia alums. So that's an interesting stat. But yeah, Pitch the Perfect Investment, I think, goes well because it's meant for the early career analyst and how to just do the job better. And it's laid out in a dispassionate way that is rare to find outside of that book, actually, which is why I have my mentees read it.
Yeah, our humble goal is to provide as good or better investing curriculum to the Columbia Business School adjunct program at a fraction of the time commitment and cost. In fact, in some ways, siphoning off current adjuncts like Paul to be instructors in our program and a few others as well. So Andrew learned that 7 years too late.
I can attest to what there was at CBS and what's not in CBS, and I'm a big proponent of the practical. So we're very much about kind of what works here and what are the things that will help you wherever you go. Those are the non-negotiables. The particularities of where you work, the distinctions between your PM's investment styles, that is a conversation for you to have with your PM. We're just there to make those conversations a lot more productive to start.
All right. Unless there are any last questions, going once, going twice, going 3 times, we will, for participants in this program, we are, let me see, we're offering a 10% code. 10 August. We'll email us out as well too. I'll email out the deck and the replay and the discount code. I think that will be active for like 72 hours or something. Let me check with Joe on that. So that'll give you, if you're planning on enrolling, please use that because that'll give you an extra 10% off. Other than that, if there are any questions, please email myself, Brett at Fundament Edge, or Andrew at Fundament Edge, not Fundamental Edge, and we would be happy to take any questions. So thanks for the time today, and hopefully we'll see some of you in the program. If not, all good as well too. Our goal is to not to sell anything, but to serve those who are hungry and looking for some frameworks and tools. So thank you for your time, and we'll see you soon.